We're going to be starting a new unit called quadratics. So the topics in quadratics, we're going to do expanding, and then we're going to do something called common factoring, and then we're going to go on to simple factoring, and that's going to be kind of the quadratic math aspect of things. And then probably after that, we're going to go on to quadratic graphing. And this will take us probably about 2 weeks and a bit. This lesson is just going to be quadratics expanding. So, expanding. What we have is, so we're going to start with some review. So let's say we had 3 times 2x plus 4. And expanding essentially in math means, for now at least, get rid of brackets. So expanding means you are going to get rid of the brackets. And this we've done already before. And the way you expand is you when you have a number in front right next to a bracket, that means multiply. So the number next to the bracket, that means that we multiply. We multiply that number in once per term inside the bracket. A term is something separated by a plus. And so that's going to be equal to, so 3 times 2x, 3 times 2 is 6, so that's going to be 6x. And then 3 times 4 is 12, and we have expanded it. And that's it. We'll do another one of review. This one's going to be a little bit different. 4x times 2x minus 7. So we have something in front multiplied by the bracket. And again, we're going to multiply it in once per term. And it's going to give us 4x times 2x. So 4 times 2 is 8. X times x is x squared. You essentially add up the exponents, but x times x is x squared. And then 4x times negative 7, 4 times negative 7. And if you're not sure, you could always put in your calculator. So 4 times negative 7 is negative 28. So it's going to be minus 28, and then we throw in the x. So 8x squared minus 28x. And that's algebra. So let's review that you may or may not recall that from the beginning of the year. Now we're going to do something new. So the new thing is going to be 2x plus 3 plus 4x. I'm just doing 2, 3, 4, 5. So what we have is, we actually call this multiplying binomials. It's because when you have one term, it's called a monomial. When you have 2 terms, it's a binomial. So that's a monomial times a binomial. This has 2 terms, this has 2 terms. So it's a binomial times a binomial. So if you were going to look this up online, if the explanation I'm giving today is not adequate, you would look up how to multiply binomials. And that would be the mathy way of explaining. That would be the mathy way, of saying what this concept is that we're doing today. So the way we're going to do this is, this 2 is going to be multiplied by each thing in the other bracket. So the 2x is going to be multiplied by both of those. So 2x times 4x is 8x squared. And then the 2x times the 5, 2 times 5 is 10, is 10x. But what we're also going to do is we're also going to multiply the 3 by both of these guys. And so what we have is 3 times 4x is 12x, and then 3 times 5 is 15. So we actually multiply 4 things. So the 2x is multiplied by those 2, the 3 is multiplied by those 2 as well. And we're almost done. What we're going to do now is we're going to collect any like terms. And like terms are terms, as you may or may not recall, are terms that have the same letters with the same exponents. So this is an x squared, that's an x, that's an x, that is no x. So these guys over here, these two are like terms. So we're going to combine the like terms, and then we're going to add those up. That's how we're going to do it. So the 8x squared becomes 8x squared. 10 plus 12 is 22, so that's going to be plus 22x. And 15 is 15. And that's the final answer. So this times this is going to give us this. 2x plus 3 times 4x plus 5 is 8x squared plus 22x plus 15. Let's do another example. So we're going to have 3x minus 7 times 4x minus 2. So the 3x is going to multiply by these guys. And this one's going to multiply by those. I think in other years, I remember some students, they called this a lobster claw. It's kind of a lobster claw. But, yes. So 3x times 4x is 12x squared. 3x times negative 2, you have to be careful, 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. So that's going to be minus 6x. Negative, then we do the red ones. Negative 7 times 4. Negative 7 times 4 is negative 28x. And a negative times a negative, negative 7 times negative 2, if you put it into your calculator, turns out to be negative 7 times negative 2 is positive 14. And we once again have to collect the like terms. So it's going to give us 12x squared minus 34x plus 14. And that's the answer for D. E. Three x minus 5 times 2x plus 7. So once again, now if you don't like the lobster claw way of remembering it, another way this is often talked about is we multiply the first two things. So these are the first two pieces of every bracket. And then here we multiply kind of the outside two terms. So we'll put an O over there. Then here we multiply the inside two terms. And then these are the last two terms. So sometimes you may hear some people talk about this, and they're going to call this FOIL. So FOIL is a mnemonic that lets you remember that you should multiply everything by everything. I don't think it's necessarily useful. I mean, I call it FOIL, but I think a better way to think of it is that each term multiplies by every term in the other bracket. Because FOIL only works if you have two terms in the brackets. There could be more than that if you go on to higher level math. And maybe this year, depending. So we're going to go through it. 3 times 2 is 6. X times x is x squared. Do the outside terms. 3 times 7 is plus 21x. Negative 5 times 2 is minus 10x. And negative 5 times plus 7 is negative 35. So that's going to give us 6x squared plus 21 minus 10 is 11 minus 35. And that's E. Now sometimes you might have a situation where you have nothing in front of the x's. So you have x times 3, x plus 3 I mean, times x plus 8. And this is actually, as it turns out, easier. So there is something in front of the x's, it's just invisible. And the invisible number in front of the x's is, of course, it's an invisible 1. And you don't see it because it's invisible. Oh, hilarious. Okay, so 1 times 1 is 1, which we just write as x squared. And then x times 8 is going to be 8x. 3 times x is going to be 3x, 3 times 8 is 24. So this was actually a substantially easier expanding because, I mean, there was 1s, and it's easy to multiply by 1. 8 plus 3 is 11x plus 24. And we're done with that. Okay. Squared. I'm going to do a quick little reminder. So when we have, it's tempting to just take the squared and bring these into both of these terms. You're not allowed to do that. But I will show something. So let's say we had 7 squared. That would just be 7 times 7, which is whatever it is, right? It's 49, or if you remember that, great. 3 squared is 3 times 3, which is 9. 4 squared is 4 times 4. Blob squared is blob times blob. And the point, and that's essentially where the point I was getting at. So if I have 4x minus 3 squared, what this really becomes, if something is squared, it's just multiplied by itself. So another way of writing 4x minus 3 squared is 4x minus 3 times 4x minus 3. And now we're back to a binomial expansion, and so we go and we do it. All right, so you don't have to keep on writing the arrows. I might stop eventually. 4 times 4 is 16x squared. 4 times negative 3 is minus 12. Negative 3 times positive 4 is also negative 12. And negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. So that's going to give us 16x squared minus 24x plus 9. Okay. So H. Something weird is going to happen here. 3x minus 5 times 3x plus 5. If you want, you could always pause it, of course, and before I work it out, see if you can figure it out yourself. So we're going to multiply. 3 times 3 is 9x squared. 3 times 5 is plus 15x. Negative 5 times 3 is minus 15x. And minus 5 times 5 is negative 25. So nothing special happened. So we're going to go and collect the like terms, as per usual. So we're going to get 9x squared. But then here, 15 minus 15 is 0. So it's actually 9x squared plus 0x minus 25, which we then write as 9x squared minus 25. This thing is actually, this is a special math name. This one's called a difference of squares. Difference of squares. You don't need to know that yet. It's going to come up a couple of lessons from now. And that's it. So that should give you enough information to do the easy factoring worksheet.